Welcome to the Mobile Monger Podcast, where we go behind the scenes in the cheese world to chat with the people making, selling, or distributing your favorite specialty food products. I'm your host, Janae Muha, certified cheese professional, longtime cheesemonger, and producer advocate. Indianapolis has made itself known on the food scene with some pretty fantastic products. Smoking Goose is high on that list. What started as a retail butcher shop and neighborhood market has turned into a nationally distributed charcuterie company that is seen in cheese shops big and small. In this episode, I talk with Chris Eley on how he built his meat empire. He gives us a basic primer on salami production, the pizza analogy he relies on to create the flavor profiles of his products, and how COVID has helped them build better systems to accommodate his consumer base.
Eley. My wife and I own Smoking Goose and Goose the Market. I guess the way I kind of got into it was more just an interest in butchering in the beginning. So in my former career, I was a chef, worked as a chef, and I did a lot of the center of the plate type stuff for restaurants. So I did a lot of like the specs and like portion cutting for kind of some larger restaurant groups, some steakhouses and fine dining. So I would do a lot of like the packing houses, and I would visit. So I started to get interested just in the butchering initially. And then that kind of at that time was like when the butchering was really starting to lead into like the whole hog process and like the whole animal. So I was in a good position at that time because I actually got to like work with a lot of larger restaurant companies and help utilize the entire animal rather than just portion cutting, like the primary cuts of what we would normally do, like what people would call like the American cuts. And so that's kind of how I got interested in it. When I really started getting into it, I really loved a lot of the markets in Chicago. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I really loved the neighborhood markets, just like the small, like Paulina Market, and just like the every market or every it's like any big city, I guess, but has its own little like borough of a market that is like caters to the people of that area, whatever their background is. And so I really liked all those small markets in Chicago. And Indianapolis at the time had a couple like kind of old school butcher shops, one German butcher shop that's still around. It's a great shop. And then two other kind of like American style butcher shops that were really cool and that are still here. They're older shops. So I kind of wanted to get back into like more the European with like the French and Italian influence as a neighborhood market. And we don't really say that a lot. I mean, that's not really like on our door. But I just wanted that feel of a neighborhood market. And I had like the classical training in culinary, and I liked that background of cooking. And so that butchering led to smoking and curing, and then that led to the salami making. So it was kind of a process that happened over the course of maybe 5 or 10 years, probably 10 years before I really started making salami at our we started making some in Chicago, but really started making it in Indianapolis at our retail shop. Chicago was like hiding it in wine rooms. The health department at the time didn't really have good plans, HACCP plans in place, so they didn't really know to check. So you're always kind of hiding it. When we came to Indy, really started diving into it and making our own stuff to sell. So yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it, I guess.
So tell me about Smoking Goose. Like, what are all the parts? Because you guys got a lot of little parts.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to in our businesses, I tend to like not to like pigeonhole ourselves too hard into one thing. So we do kind of a lot of different things for our size of company. But so at the core of it, I mean, the core of Smoking Goose is kind of very unique styles of charcuterie, basically. So curing, smoking, drying of meats of all types. So not just strictly pork. We do a lot of game meats. We do a lot of influence, I'd say, by different cultures, but quite honestly, the flavor profiles, the style, the pigs, the hardwoods, the wood we smoke with, all that type of stuff is to like represent our region of the country, right? So it's our region is very seasonal, very fluctuating in temperatures and humidity. It is obviously great hardwoods, okay in some areas at raising hogs, really good in other areas depending on what parts of the state you're in. The other types of things, a lot of like foraged ingredients, so foraged spices, herbs. We use obviously like things that are brewed near us, so meads, beers, sour ales, those types of things. So really just kind of like, I mean, in the best sense of cooking, it's like use the best ingredients that you have around you to try to not screw it up and just create something really good. And that's pretty much what we do. The other facets of it, retail, we do have retail shops. We have an e-commerce business that is not only our products, but our, a host or a variety of other types of items as well. We do some catering, but that's different now than it was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. But yeah, I mean, the biggest part, the main drive of our business is our smoking, curing, and salami and all that type of stuff. So it's good.
So Indianapolis, I feel like, has a new kind of burgeoning food production scene, or it feels new to me because I'm on the West Coast. So I've only just been hearing about it over the last couple of years. So what made you choose Indianapolis, and why do you think that is now kind of like the hot spot for food production?
I mean, I guess the character, I chose Indianapolis because I grew up here, and I always knew that when I was gonna start doing my own thing, I wanted to do it back here. And some of that's just because I loved Indianapolis at the time. I thought there was a lot of opportunity. I felt like I had the ability to make more of an impact on a city or an area like this, I guess, than I would in, say, a place like Chicago or some of the other cities I lived in. And not that you can't in those cities, but there's a lot of noise. There's just a lot always going on, right? Chicago's probably a easier city or a better city, maybe an easier city. I mean, it's known as a true like meat town, like meat food manufactured, food production kind of town. I mean, that's all the slaughter areas or slaughterhouses there, and all the cutting houses, all the big steak cutting houses were there. But Indianapolis at the time, 15 years ago, well, I didn't actually come back here to open Smoking Goose. I came back here to open the market. So really once we had the market open, it was more like, hey, we're going to stay here. We're going to like really dig deep, the market was like, that's the type of business that's easy. If you wanted to pick it up and move it, you kind of essentially could. You could kind of do our market in any neighborhood you want to, really. But in terms of like really digging deep and building something like we've been building over the past 10 years at Smoking Goose, I like the urban areas of the city. It's a lot. The buildings are newer. The facilities are nicer. It's cheaper. All the smaller towns and the suburbs will give you more money and tax breaks to go out there. I just didn't want to do it. There's a lot of empty buildings in the urban area of Indianapolis that needed some love. And a lot of the food manufacturing, like the smaller companies that were starting up, have kind of stuck to, not all, but some of those buildings downtown. All the breweries are down there and that sort of thing. I stayed downtown mainly because I like the neighborhoods and I like the old buildings. I like the old industrial areas, and I wanted to be a part of like bringing those old industrial areas back. And when we opened 10 years ago, there was like nothing in our neighborhood. You were there recently. You've seen all the homes that are going up in the area and all the other redevelopment of those warehouses. I mean, there's like, is it called fouling? Do you know this? Fouling? I don't know. There's like all these, it's like a mixture between bowling and football. So I don't know. There's like a fouling place nearby. There's a guy that makes ice cream. Like there's all kinds of stuff now. And it's a really cool neighborhood. I'm glad that we were able to be a part of that over the last 10 years, because it's been a lot of fun to see things, change. And honestly, like it didn't even change. It's not like the neighborhood flipped, because there's still like a lot of the old neighborhoods still there, which is great. And there's probably certain areas that they're getting pushed out, unfortunately, which sucks. I hate that. But there's still a lot of areas that you can tell that's the way those neighborhoods have been, for 20 or 30 years. The area kind of went off the rails a little bit because of when they put the interstate through the city, it kind of divided the city in half. And that was kind of like the half part of the city that kind of, I guess, got ignored. I don't really know. I wasn't here during that time, but it's coming back, So I think the other thing is just pretty centrally located. It's hard for us to get way west where you are, easily. But in terms of shipping our products to most places where we need it to go, it's we're right. They call it the crossroads of America for a reason. It's all the interstates that come right through the heart. So we like to think of ourselves as a lot of people refer to us as the flyover state, but we kind of like to think of ourselves like the heart of the Midwest.
And that's true. I mean, it's
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you're so close to Chicago that you could basically port off of anything from Chicago to east or west
Yeah.
And then south is straight down. So
yeah. I mean, even if you just think of 65, I think you drove 65, I think you can get on 65, you can hit some of the cool cities going from Chicago, Indy, Louisville, Nashville, Montgomery.
I hit all of those cities.
I'm probably forgetting a couple other ones, but there's some great cities just along 65, So I don't know. It's fun.
So let's talk about how you choose the farms that you work with and what your inspiration is for some of the flavors that you produce. Because you definitely, I know you kind of talked about what's local and whatnot, but some of them seem pretty, they're innovative. They're different. Mm-hmm. They're not what you normally see.
Yeah. I in terms of the flavor. Well, I guess to start at the farms. The farms, most if not all of the farms I've worked with for a very long time that we currently work with. Some of the longest ones date back to Chicago, so 17 years. Gunthorpe Farms is probably the longest farm that I've worked with since we've started, or I guess kind of even since I was cooking. So when I was first kind of getting into working with small farms, he was the one in Chicago that I think it was in the late 90s. He can tell the story better than I can, of course, but this was way back for him. He's maybe 10 years older than I am. But his first big opportunity was he sold a whole pig to Charlie Trotter, and he drove it in the back of his hatchback to Charlie Trotter's restaurant in Chicago. I don't think he'd ever even been to Chicago. So he's driving through Chicago, white knuckle, driving a sedan. And so for me, that was my first introduction, oh, wow, there are still farms. I was kind of young at the time, and I guess I didn't even realize that there's actually small farms that you can, buy pasture-raised pigs from. So that was kind of my introduction to that. And I would say that was roughly 15 to 20 years ago, definitely more than 15 and maybe close to 20 years ago. And so I've bought pigs from him probably every week for 20 years. I probably had an order for him, no matter kind of where I've gone or where I've been. And then, we kind of went through this time where people were having a hard time getting pigs slaughtered in Indiana at smaller facilities. Some of the smaller facilities started to close. And then during this whole COVID thing, last couple of years, it really we used to really be able to do 6 to 10 pigs from other small farms and, kind of do a lot of different heritageries, but it got really rough during COVID to be able to get those pigs slaughtered. I mean, they were waiting 6 months out. So it kind of has fallen off. I mean, it's something I'd like to get started again, because that's where we were able to do no one really raises enough large black hogs to supply us every week. But we were able to do different breeds from different farms and kind of rotate between 5 or 6 different farms and different types of pigs. And I want to be able to get back to that. And the slaughter, like I said, the slaughtering kind of got messed up, but hopefully, there's been a lot of money coming from the USDA to help smaller slaughter facilities open up more regionally again. So hopefully we'll see some of that come back. As far as the flavor profiles, I always like to think of it as as a Neapolitan style pizza, like if you got more than three flavors going on, it's too much. Like it's just like it's too much for that delicate of a pie. And like for me, it's like I like to keep it to like 2 or 3 like primary ingredients, and then that's kind of where I start. So I'm always like, all right, I never really like, I don't want to like have too much going on, right? So I want to pick 2 or 3 things that go really well together. Sometimes that's a protein, sometimes like that's a variety of protein. So from there, I write down like lists. I constantly like write lists of ingredients that are available, and different proteins that are available and different things that we could do. Like I have lists in my phone just of like when I think of things of like separate ingredients. So I'd like to do something with this ingredient sometime, and then I don't even know what I'm going to use it for. And a lot of times it'll just sit in my phone for months or maybe years. So then when it's time to like try to bring something together, I usually have like some stuff that I start picking from. Like, oh, I'd like to try to do this. Where can we get this? Does anybody have this available? And a lot of it's usually like, obviously like things that I see are around me. Like I usually get the ideas because I'm either talk to somebody that's growing it, or meet them at a market, or see it at a roadside stand, something like that. And I'm like, oh man, that'd be really cool. If we could somehow incorporate that into something that we could do. And then I try to pick the right time of year, or the right time for our business, or the right opportunity for the company to try to bring those flavor profiles together. So I mean, in terms of like the creative side, I've always told people like at my heart, I have to work really hard at the creative side. Like I'm like a process driven, very organized person. And I'm not that creative person that's kind of like all over the place, but they can really just like throw some crazy cool stuff together like last night. Like I have to really work at it. Like I got to really push myself to be creative and to come up with ideas. So basically like, that just means I have to like constantly brainstorm and constantly take notes on like stuff that I think I would like, or I think is cool and that I would like to do sometime. And then I try to like bring them together somehow and make them work. And then it's like usually trial and error. Then I usually screw it up a lot.
Well, you don't learn anything unless you screw something up.
Right. That's the fun part about it, right?
I love that analogy though of like the Neapolitan pizza, and like I personally like things that have a bit more nuanced flavor and aren't super punchy, but like you still get all of those elements. So I really appreciate that, because sometimes I'm like tasting something, I'm like, I don't even taste the meat. Like this just tastes like spice, and it's fine, right. But that's not what I want to be able to taste, like all of the elements in it. So I really appreciate it.
Or the other opposite side is there's like they say the elements are there, but then you can't taste that. You only taste like one dimensional, like, so that's the other thing is like, I love balance. Like I like if I have a couple of things there, I want you to be able to taste each one of those individually, but at the same time, like not one should overpower the other 2 or so, That's why I like the pizza, like why I always think of it as a pizza, because like the ingredients should be simple and good, and they should speak for themselves, and it should be balanced, I think of a pizza like everything is very evenly on a good pizza, everything is like evenly dispersed. It's not like all clumped together in one big bite. You should get a little bit of everything every time you try it. So like when you start talking about grinds and mix it and how to mix it, and how we should incorporate the different ingredients, it's really important for me that you get a little bit of each of those elements in every bite, and that they don't overpower each other. I don't know. It's no, that doesn't always work.
It can't always work, but it works. It works enough that like you're doing something right.
Yeah, it works in theory, right? Sounds good, at least when you say it. But.
So one of the things when you were giving me the quick tour that I was pretty enthralled with is your knowledge of firewood, and like you were just able to pull these percentages out of your brain on like how quickly things should burn. So besides that, what other kind of like weird little things that you are now considered an expert on that you weren't expecting when you started this business?
I don't know. I think you become a mild expert on a lot of things because you have to, like, is it whether it's plumbing or electrical or welding? Like, I don't know how to do any of those things like I couldn't do one of them like professionally, but you kind of like have to do enough to be able to get by. So I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of different things. Today it's a lot of carpentry work. We're doing a lot of finished carpentry, so trim and cabinets and counter. We just installed a big old slab of walnut for our new counter. But I don't know. I mean, as far as it relates to food, I would say the piece that a lot of people don't understand, and I think it's kind of hard to explain until you like make a lot of mistakes or you see it actually work, is like the whole balance of like dew point and humidity and temperature when you're drying something, because there's so many different things that can go wrong. I mean, drying too quickly, not drying quick enough, or too much moisture in the air, or not applying heat when you should be. I like the fermentation of meat. Like, I think it's really cool. I like really like developed flavors in meat. Like we're not just like a salt and thyme company, which is funny. I mean, I think a lot of people like the tradition. And I do too. I have a huge appreciation for the salt and thyme theory. But I like to think of it as more like salt, thyme, heat, and humidity, and the moisture, and like the whole fermentation that happens in the cultures, and the flavors that the depth of flavor you can develop by messing with those things. So I think that's really enjoyable. I don't know if I'd call myself an expert on it, but I definitely like to take notes and learn and like try to do different things. I think seeing how different sugars ferment in meat is pretty cool. So like whether we use like a raw honey or we've done, trying to think of what other ones we've done. We did one with a ginger beer syrup as kind of like the sugar, like for the fermentation. I think that stuff's pretty cool. And I think that's like kind of the fun part. For me, it's the fun part. That's like the fun stuff to teach other people. Because like to some people, it's just like, oh, you put meat in a room and then you go back, 60, 90, 120 days later and it's done. It's like, no, dude, like, no, it's like, there's so much more going on, or that can go on if you're not paying attention to it. It's not really like a set it and forget it type of thing, so I don't know. It's fun. That's a good part.
Can you, I guess I talked to Mike Phillips last week. And I guess I haven't really, I should probably do this for a cheese episode too, but just kind of give me a brief walkthrough of like how, from the time that the meat comes in, how does it get to a finished product? You can do a brief overview of that.
I wish it was brief.
I know, that's the hard part. This could be a whole episode in and of itself.
Right. Well, we essentially have 4 different possible processes. The most simple being fresh ground. So we do simple fresh ground sausages in bulk and chubs. So that's easy. Cuts come in, they get cleaned out. So we do 50 pigs a week with one farm, and then about 10 to 15 pigs a week with another farm. So depending on where they're coming from, we have them cut, a specific way, and subprimals. And then from there, that's how most of the time what we're receiving at this point.
We take those raw sausages that people will have to cook when they take them home.
Yeah, this type of product. Yeah, raw sausage. And it's a very small portion of, this is like our smallest category, what we do. In fact, we only do 2, sometimes 3 different products this way. So that's comes in, grinds. We grind it, spice it, mix it, and pack it. That's the most simple one. The next one would be smoked sausage or fully cooked product. So this could range from salumi, like capicola, mortadella. We do a cooked capicola. We do a salami cotto. Those are come in, trim, spice, grind, mix, stuff, link, hand tie, rack, and then they go into, typically they're either going to go to fermentation or go to cooking after that. Chill, slice, portion, package, box, label, pallet ship. So that would be the mostly for those two options. And then fermented. So the fermented salami would be mostly the same process, except for we go to fermentation. After fermentation, we go to drying, 2-step drying process. And then depending on what it is, we would sometimes clean it. So this could involve either brushing mold, depending on how the mold developed. We may brush mold. If it's a product that's not supposed to have any mold on it, but it does. We may wash it, which would be like a light acid wash. We use vinegar, so like a vinegar and water solution to wash the surface off, just to get any mold that wasn't supposed to be there. And then packaging and shipping. And then the dry curing is a little bit different, probably different than most of them. And a lot of our whole muscle will come in, trim, depending on what we're doing with it, either tie it, net it, get it prepared for salt. So it's either going to be one or two options when it comes to salting and spicing. The majority of what we do, so like all our bacon, all of our whole muscle, all this is going to be a dry cure. So it's all going to be salt, usually some sort of sugar, usually just organic cane sugar, and spices. We're going to massage it with all those spices, let it sit depending on the size. So depending on how thick or how the diameter is of that cut of meat, will kind of determine how long we're going to allow it to sit in salt. We do have a handful, I think 2 items that we inject brine into. So we make a liquid brine, very similar process, only it's going to be the addition of water in that spice and cure mixture. And then those are either going to go to cooking, depending on if they're going to get cooked, or fermented and dried. Those will be the next steps in those. So a lot of moving. We make like roughly 40 or 50 different items that we keep in inventory at all times. And then out of those items, they can be packed a bunch of different ways. So we probably run around somewhere around like 60 or 70 SKUs, like actual like item codes of stuff that we make. We don't co-pack anything. Everything's made in house. And so it's a lot of different things going a lot of different ways. We're kind of like, most USDA facilities, and a lot of the people you talk to are probably like this, but most of the bigger USDA facilities, they're designed to do like three things as fast as you can, like straight through, right? Our facility is not. Our facility is like designed to do like a million different things, a million different ways. So the USDA loves us, needless to say. Keeps them busy.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to have to eventually do like meat fermentation or podcast and a cheese making podcast, because it's all, even though I understand mostly, I still don't understand it. All right, so let's talk about the last 2 years and COVID. How did that affect your business?
I didn't. It was fine. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, well, that's cool. I mean, I've heard of very few people that's been the case, but cool.
I mean, I think, like anything else, good and bad things. We got really busy in different areas. Basically all of our food service distributors, like, essentially just stopped, and like, it was kind of a scary moment when you realized, like, there was like definitely 1 week. These companies are like ordering every single week. And there was 1 week where like, just like one person after another was like, I need to cancel my order. And then like to not get any new orders. So that was a little bit scary at first. I guess luckily, I don't know. I mean, this was kind of part of us always being like a little bit diversified and doing some other things, like not just focusing. Like, I'm always a little worried to have like too much of my eggs in one basket. So I like having a lot of different things going on. I'd rather do like a lot of little different things than just be like, a cog in the wheel of like some big, like, this is all we do is we do this way, and we do this a million times over and over again. So we've done e-commerce for a long time, but we had just built a brand new e-commerce site, like prior to this starting. And the whole point of building that new e-commerce site was to like, remove the friction, as these people say, the people that like are good at this, I think, like remove the customer friction in the purchasing process, right? So it used to be just like, oh, hey, if you want to buy our stuff, fine, here, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, and you kind of got to deal with our website. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I started like saying, we started going down this path of like, hey, like, let's make this a whole nother, aspect of our business, but like, let's be really good at it. And so part of like trying to be really good at it is to like, simple shipping options, like it's clear, it just make the process like really simple for the customer. So we had that in line. So basically, when the lights shut off on our distributors, the retail just went crazy, and not just the e-commerce, but now a lot of the retailers that may have been buying from food service distributors couldn't get our products, right? So then all of a sudden they were calling, direct, and we just started shipping directly to all these people, consumers and stores, and building those relationships directly with people that we may or may not have had that relationship with before. Everybody was really, it's different, and it's different in a good, though there's some good things. The cash flow flipped the opposite way, where we were always like waiting on terms for distributors. Then all of a sudden, like, we had all these orders coming in that everybody was essentially paying as the product was leaving, or before the product was leaving. So that was like, it made things a little bit more easy to deal with, I guess, just from that aspect. But we never stopped working. We started separating, and everybody they weren't working the same amount, they were maybe working more. It was, I don't know, I don't even really think about it too much, quite honestly. I kind of forget all the stuff we did. It seems like a long time ago now. To me, it's just like, you've grown up around food. You've been doing it for a long time, right? How long have you been doing it?
Coming up on 20 years.
Like, it's never the same. Like, shit just changes all the time. Like, like, you're not really surprised I mean, of course we're surprised when COVID happened, I guess, but like, you're not really surprised when stuff, like when your cooler breaks down, or when this happens or that happens. It's just like, there's no like reason to dwell on it, or like to try, to like get bummed out. You just be like, okay, so now what do we do? It's like, I feel like we're pretty innovative people when it comes to food. Like, we're used to moving very perishable products. It's like moving ticking time bombs constantly, right? Like, we're just good at like those problem solving. Like, okay, that's fine. What do we do now? Like, how do we do something different? And I don't know. To me, it was a big one, but it was just like kind of like any other year. I mean, I feel like every year there's something like that happens. Like, I don't know. It's always different. Just try to adapt.
I think that within our age range too, with like the 9/11 and the 2008 housing bust and all of that stuff, I feel like we've been through enough big things where we're like, we just deal with whatever comes next. Things are going to change. Who knows?
Yeah. Stay calm,
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
freak out a little bit, but like figure it out still.
I give myself like 24 hours to freak out about something, like, okay. And after that, it's like, all right, let's move on. Start working on, whatever we're going to do next, I guess. But
I think that you already built that into your business plan in terms of diversifying enough that like you can move a little more flexibly than some places that are kind of stuck in what they're doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's actually something that came out of it early on. We started, so we had such success with the e-commerce site, and I feel like we're pretty good at it.
I agree. I think you're great. I ordered twice during COVID, so
yeah, appreciate it. I mean, I'm not gonna say we're perfect. I'm sure we messed some stuff up. So if somebody hears this, I'm very sorry, and we'll fix it. So just let us know. We'll take care of it. but we feel like we were pretty good at it, and we quickly built a wholesale e-commerce site. So this, because so many people, it's very, taking orders, via text or phone calls or emails. It's a very, you can make a lot of mistakes. You can, there's a lot of back and forth that has to happen. It can be a pain. And then like, not for us necessarily, but for the customer. And that really, we doubled or tripled those kind of orders that we were doing during that time. And I was like, oh, who knows how long this is going to last? And quite honestly, this is a part of our business that, like, another aspect of our business that we can grow. So we quickly built this wholesale, it's a login password type situation. You have to have a wholesale account with us. But other than that, I mean, it works a lot like a e-commerce website. I mean, all the descriptions are there, all the pricing, the pack sizes, the flavor profiles, all that information's right there and accessible. It's far less mistakes are made in terms of like, oh, do you want pounds or pieces, or do you, what's the price going to be, or what's my shipping going to be? It just makes that process a lot easier for the customer. And it's going really well. We've been running it now for about a year, and it's really to the point now where like we could double or triple the amount of business that we're doing through that website, just because we've got a lot of the kinks worked out now. So it's still not perfect. It's still like another real good year to work out even more of the stuff. But I mean, most of it is not noticeable to the consumer. Most of it's like back end stuff or noticeable to the customer. So that's been something like that came out of it that was pretty cool that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, like had we not kind of been forced to do something like that. So we'll continue to grow that and, see how it goes.
That's cool because, I've been a buyer before and I've worked with a lot of the like wholesale e-commerce type of stuff. And sometimes you just have to know what you're ordering to order it. Yeah. And like that kind of sucks. So to be able to actually see what everything is and get the flavor descriptions, I think that that's awesome and like super helpful as on our end of being a buyer, because it does kind of get tough when you're like pages and pages of stuff and you're like, I have no idea what this thing is. So
and we like to do a lot of like seasonal stuff. We offer, if something, we end up having a lot of inventory on something, we'll offer discounts on it on there. So there's a lot of like stuff that you can do that way that you can't really, it's hard to do over the phone or email sometimes to every single person that you talk to. And so like, it's a good way for us to like get those messages out. So when those buyers are going to those pages, like you said, like it's impossible to remember who's doing what, when, and when's this coming out. And, when do I have to order this by, it makes it a lot simpler in my opinion. I mean, our next thing that I need to get done, or we want to get done is the app. It's good. It's mobile friendly, but I want to have an app too. So hopefully that'll be the next thing. But everybody's got an app, so I guess we got to get one.
So besides that, what else are you guys working on? Like, I know you're remodeling the market right now.
And then we're building some new, building some new rooms over at Smoking Goose, new shipping rooms. That's next. So as soon as these guys get done here doing our refrigeration, then they're going to start working on our new shipping rooms over there. And then we're kind of working on some of our slice retail packaging and like the appearance and the shelf life of that, the different types of packaging. So working on improving some of that. So we actually just got in some equipment that we're going to be installing to work on that. That's not that exciting. That's kind of like nuts and bolts type of stuff. That's not like super exciting. But as far as products, we got our 2 holiday products that are coming this year I'm really excited about. We have a blackberry and duck salami with a sour ale. That's pretty freaking good. I'm really excited about. That's with an Upland sour ale. So Upland's a brewery out of Bloomington, Indiana. They're kind of known for sour ales. They got a bunch of different sour ales that they do. So I'm really excited about that. And then we got for our ham, we do a ham every year for like a holiday ham that we run that will run essentially through the end of the year, and then also through like Easter of the first part of next year. So this one is a peachwood smoked ham. So yeah, those are kind of things we're working on right now. It's been tough to be like, we're really busy right now, and like everybody else, we got, especially anybody that ages meat, a lot of these people got caught off guard when all the food service came back this year, and those are the types of things that are hard to like turn around. And so there was a couple things that happened. There was this time where all these, like a lot of like slaughtering places and people were having issues with actual COVID, roughly, I guess it would have been a little less than a year ago now. I mean, it was right around like Thanksgiving, like between like Thanksgiving and Christmas last year. So that caused some people to make less product at that time of year. And it wasn't necessarily us. We weren't having issues getting our pigs killed at that time of year, but essentially kind of what I'm picking up of what happened is that they essentially couldn't make stuff for X amount of weeks, or weren't making as much or whatever. So it's really causing like some major shortages in some of their production. Currently they don't have the product. So what it's doing is forcing people like that wouldn't maybe not spend as much on our product. They're like pricing themselves up because some of the less expensive stuff isn't available. And so we're really getting killed on some stuff that like we didn't anticipate seeing a huge jump on. So, it's just scrambling to try to make more and try to find more room to age more. And, you can't, it's not really a switch you can just flip when those things happen that quickly. So, but, I mean, I'm not mad. It's just, it's, we're having the same problems with, finding enough people to do the job. Sometimes getting product from us to our customers has been an issue. A lot of freight issues right now. So like, unfortunately, we're spending a lot of time on like kind of headache stuff like that, which isn't fun, but it's just part of it, I guess, running the business. But
all right, last couple questions here. This is kind of the speed round.
Oh, okay.
What is your current cheese crush?
I've been eating a lot of probably foxglove. We made some strawberry jam earlier this year, and that for like breakfast, good. It's real good. So that's probably my cheese crush right now for sure.
It's not surprising that you did choose kind of a meaty cheese.
Yeah, it is kind of a meaty cheese. Yeah. Yep.
Your best food memory, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about like actually eating food, but just like a time that really sticks out in your head around food that is just super memorable.
Yeah. I had a hard time with that one too, because I kind of have probably three main ones really. Like, from a kid, or like my longtime one is my mom's lasagna that she makes for Christmas. She makes it Christmas Day every year. So like that to me, like, is probably my favorite. One of my favorites from traveling was actually influences a product I make now, but in Montreal, I met this guy who made a kind of a whole hog salami, because I had never really considered putting like offal in a salami at that time. And I want to say this was like maybe a year or two before I opened Smoking Goose. We were in Montreal, and I met this guy, had his stuff at a farmer's market, and it was a lot of heart and liver. I mean, there was pork shoulder, but then there was a lot of heart, liver, and then just like an obscene amount of red wine. And really nice guy. He spoke French primarily, but he had like a little bit of English. So like we had kind of a broken conversation, and he kind of like roughly, he kind of like roughly told me his process. And I like, it was part, first of all, when you're traveling, everything tastes better, and obviously it was a great salami, not to downplay it all, but like everything is a great memory. Like a lot of my food memories are like traveling, like those are some of the best ones. but he was super cool, and it was like a beautiful day, and like kind of just everything about the conversation I really loved. So like I came back and wanted to like try to, I guess, kind of like try to recreate something similar to what I had there. So our saucisson rouge is kind of our is my effort, and I still think his is probably better. I love our saucisson rouge, but his, and maybe because it was the weather and his personality and charm and everything else that went along with it, why I liked it so much. But we took a stab at it, and we've made the saucisson rouge since I started making it at the market, but it's been one of our salami since we opened 10 years ago, roughly. So yeah, those are probably two of my big ones.
All right, fave pairing. Come on, quick, top of the head. First thing.
I mean, I don't know. That's, I'm kind of like, if it's just like an everyday thing,
yeah,
it's like seriously salty potato chips and like really good French onion dip.
Perfect.
I like it.
I love
it.
Perfect. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, like really good French onion dip. I love good French onion dip.
I also am a fan, so
Are you? Oh,
yeah, I love that. I love that.
We were camping in Ohio a few months ago, and I picked one up, probably my favorite of all time. It was just like one of those, I guess it was probably an Amish one, it was just in one of those little stores, like a roadside store type of thing. I've been thinking about that French onion dip ever since then. Now it's like it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, when it's really good when you're like 2 months later, like. Well, is there anything about Smoking Goose that you want people to know in particular that we didn't quite cover, or?
There's a lot to talk about at Smoking Goose. Honestly, we just want you to know we love you guys, and we love the support. We love that you everything that we just try to do something and not screw it up. We try to hopefully make something that you really enjoy and that you want to try more of. So I don't know. I mean, if you got questions, email us, or shoot us a message on social media, because we love the interaction and the communication. So yeah, I think that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
And
good talking to you. Have a good day.
Easygoing nature is prevalent in everything he does, and this was such an enjoyable conversation. Big thanks to Chris for taking time out of his busy schedule to chat now and when I recently visited. Also, big shout out to Mollie for hooking up the road snacks she provided from the market that kept me going after the wild flash floods I waded through to get to them. The generosity was much appreciated. This podcast is recorded, produced, and edited by me, Janae Muha. Thank you to Ben Muha for allowing me to use your music. To support the show, please find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Mobile Monger. To financially support the continuation of this podcast, please consider contributing to my Patreon. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep spreading the word of good curd.